of the day, our industrial procurement panel. And on stage, we have Scott Bowen, procurement category manager at TPC Group. We have Nikki Mason, North American hub lead for technical goods and services at Covestro. And Dub Edwards. Oh, we can hoop and holler. Come on, let's go. There we go. There we go. All right. She has fans. She will stay and sign autographs after today. And we got Dub Edwards, Global Procurement Global Procurement Director, Western Hemisphere at Indovinya and Indorama Ventures Company. So, Dub, thanks for hanging out with us today. All right, so we're talking tariffs as well as current and upcoming projects and recent company announcements. We're going to explore how vendors and contractors can discover opportunities within their organizations. And finally, we'll identify both current and future challenges as well as strategies these folks are implementing to overcome them. So quick reminder, we do have our Slido feature here, IPF, November 13th. Feel free to submit some more questions. We did a pretty good job on the advanced recycling panel and look forward to your questions here today. All right, so I'm going to let each one of our panelists talk a little bit about their roles and responsibilities. I'm going to kick off with Scott.
Well, howdy. So my name's Scott Bowen. I am a procurement category manager for TPC Group. And my areas are technical materials, EHS, so all of our safety services, and also IT. For the entire company. So we're a smaller company, and so you could say all of us are North America managers, but because that's all there is. But those are my areas.
Fantastic. Nikki, you're up next.
Yeah, so hello, I'm Nikki Mason, and my team and I are responsible for all the technical goods, site services, and capital projects for all of our sites in North America. I've been in this role for about 5 years. Previous to this role, I also was on the direct side for a while, buying raw materials and energy. At our Pittsburgh site I was located, and I've been a tech center now for 5 years, so nice to see everybody.
And Nikki has a few kids in the house. They're into jiu-jitsu. There is no furniture safe in her home at any given time. Absolutely. So, Dub, you're up next. Talk a little bit about your role.
Good morning. And Scott, you can call yourself global. And you know,
yeah, that's true.
Because you're global for you guys, right? So anyway, my name's Dub Edwards. I'm the Global Procurement Director for Indovinya. We're an Indorama Ventures company. We're probably the largest company you've never heard of, if you haven't heard of us. Been with the company about 4 years. Before that, I spent about 7 years with Phillips 66. And then prior to that, 15 years with Shell in a global role, globetrotting 5 continents. I started with Shell in the business and then moved into procurement. So moved to the dark side or the light side, however you look at it. And I always have to confess my skeleton's in the closet. Before that, I was actually an environmental engineering director working for a lot of big owner-operators. So I've been a supplier, I've been in a business, and I've been in procurement. And as I always used to say, I'm not bipolar, I'm tripolar. So glad to be here.
Dub, tell everybody what you like to do when you're not working.
Love to cook, play golf, and drink wine and hang out with my family.
Absolutely, man. Those are important things.
Not
Scott,
necessarily in that order.
Or at the same time, yeah. I knew Scott prior to this, but I knew him as Santa Claus because he dressed up as that for my kids' Cub Scout pack. I had to throw that in there, Scott. So after this, we're going to stay around and invite your kids, and Scott's going to get us going here for the holiday season. But Scott, I should stick with you too. Tell everybody what you like to do in your free time.
I do that.
Other than Santa
I do a lot of running in my free time. I follow public policy. I mean, I'm I don't know. Do my thing. Travel sometimes, but not as often as I'd like to. And yeah, that's me.
Sure. Clear Creek School Board. It's also something you've been involved with, correct, Scott?
Yes.
All right, guys, so our audience is interested to hear about potential opportunities with your organization. What is happening within your company as far as projects currently underway, approved, or upcoming? Feel free to discuss any upcoming turnarounds. Scott, I'll kick things off with you.
Yeah, so we just had a major outage that we wrapped up that I think was very successful, and kind of as we go on in the next couple of years, we'll have more unit projects, things like that coming up, and then another unit outage in 2027 that we're already starting to make preparations for.
So, Nikki, I'll go to you. What's happening at Covestro and what's going on as far as projects? Anything currently underway or upcoming?
Yeah, so similar to what Scott mentioned, we also have turnarounds. Ours are now annually, so every year, mainly in the spring, we will have a major turnaround of one of our units at our site here in the Baytown, Texas area. So that's always an opportunity. There's always small and medium and large projects that are going on that might either be unit-led or led by our engineering teams. And we also have our big expansion right now at our Hebron, Ohio facility, which is one of our bigger projects. So a lot of things, even in the challenging environment, that are still going on, have a strong business case and options for you all to work with us or to get into our sites.
Nikki, define the Covestro a little bit. We have the North American headquarters in Pittsburgh. You have U.S. Ops here in Baytown. What are some other sites for folks that aren't maybe familiar with all of your sites?
Yeah, so we have multiple sites throughout the United States. As Jeremy mentioned, we have our corporate headquarters here in North America at Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We have our 2 sites in West Virginia, New Martinsville and South Charleston. We do have our facility in Hebron, Ohio, and then we have other sites in Elgin, Illinois. We have Wilmington, Massachusetts. We have our Channelview site here also in Texas, just to name a few.
All right. And Dub, set sail here. Talk about really describe Indovinya, if you would, for folks that maybe don't know that as part of Indorama. That would be a good place to start. And then talk a little bit more about what you guys got going on as far as projects and investments.
Okay, big question. Indovinya, newly branded. We rolled out this new brand about 4 months ago. We're a wholly owned subsidiary of Indorama Ventures. For those of you not familiar with us, we have 3 primary segments: our fibers division, our combined PET business, and then the more traditional petrochemical, which is the one I sit in, which used to be called Integrated Oxides and Derivatives. Really rolls off the tongue, so we decided to change the name. But we're about 35,000 employees globally, 35 countries. I think we're up to about 145 plants around the world. Our division is primarily in the Western Hemisphere. We've got a small footprint in the Asia Pacific region. So as far as turnarounds and outages, we're always in some phase of a turnaround. We're actually just wrapping up our largest one in our network out at our Port Neches facility, but we're already gearing up for one that we've got upcoming in our Clear Lake plant, and one in Camaçari in Brazil. So if you guys have Brazilian operations or Uruguayan or Mexico or any of those countries, we have opportunities as well.
And Dub, you did some expatriate stints, right? Talk a little bit about your experience outside of the U.S.
Well, previous life. So with Shell, I spent about 11 years in global category management. Spent a lot of time in Europe, the Netherlands, Great Britain, France, Germany, et cetera. Fair amount of time in Southeast Asia, Kuala Lumpur, Bangkok, Melbourne, Australia. Great place to be in the middle of the holidays because everybody's wearing shorts and flip-flops. A lot in South America, Argentina, Brazil, Central America, Canada, et cetera. So,
but nothing beats Texas.
And East Texas, right. And I've also spent a fair amount of time in Louisiana, and I will tell anybody that of all the places I visited, I will tell you Louisiana is one of my favorite countries.
Phenomenal country. I'm from there. All right, there, Dub. So I'm going to stick with you. Guys, the chemical industry has seen an extended period of economic headwinds. We've had 12 quarters. That's 3 years for those of us who struggle with math. I'm alone? Come on, there's got to be a couple out there. And some companies have struggled since COVID. Most forecasts say that the chemical industry outlook is soft headed into next year. Capital, that is money, 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 as the song goes, is much more expensive now than it was a few years ago, restricting growth and greenfield and brownfield projects. What are some of the strategies, Dub, implemented to navigate these challenging times, such as pass-through clauses or shared risk mechanisms?
Well, thanks for cheering me up. But yes, we've been in a soft market for probably close to 3 years. We've had some up and downs over that 3 years, so we've actually had some good periods. And we don't envision it getting any better for the next 4 or 5 quarters. I think most experts are saying it'll probably remain soft through 2026. And we also know what the cost of capital is these days. So 3 years ago, 4 years ago, it really didn't matter because money was free. And where we are in current interest rate environment, it becomes quite precious. So we're trying to balance, the profit, the EBITDA targets, which companies get consumed with, but you also have to watch your cash position as well. And I think a lot of good companies with great EBITDA, if they're not paying attention to their cash, can go out of business because you need cash to operate. And in the current environment, we're working with our strategic suppliers. We're pushing out payment terms. We're counterbalancing that with some relatively innovative complementary solutions like supply chain financing. But we really are trying to push out payment terms while balancing the sustainability and the health of our suppliers, because we absolutely don't want to inflict any financial pain on our suppliers. It doesn't do us any good if suppliers don't have a sustainable remuneration structure or commercial arrangement with us. So we're balancing that, but we are taking a very close focus on cash, working capital, inventory, and down the line, leaving no stone unturned in the current environment.
Nikki, I'll go to you next. Well, what are some actions Covestro has taken as far as contracts and other mitigating actions?
Yeah, I would say I first and foremost will echo what Dub said. I think that payment terms for us is a huge initiative, looking at ways that we can extend cash flow in order for us to be more lucrative, and really get through this existing environment that we also will see will last at least probably another few quarters, if not another year, until we really can bounce back from everything. In addition, we're also looking at, where can we bundle, right? We're looking at, not only maybe we have tools over here and safety supplies over here, or a contractor for one activity and another contractor over here. Where can we bundle? So we could create partnerships. We can really look at the longevity of having, partners with us and not just these one-off, two-off jobs. We're also looking at, can we provide a contractor more business? And maybe it's a short-term gain for us on the price, and we really can work together. I think that everything we knew pre-COVID has kind of went out the window, and we're kind of looking at each and every contract to see where we might be able to do better, look at more creative options, maybe short-term or long-term, depending on the commodity or the category. But it really has opened up for us an opportunity for us to really think about how we used to do things in the past, because everything we used to know in the procurement world has kind of gone out the window, and we kind of have to start over. Even though a lot of us have been in the industry for a long time, it's kind of like we're learning new things that we never experienced before, because I think the supply chain impacts from COVID are still around today, and that's causing a lot of these problems.
Nick, in our pre-call, you mentioned like spot deals are more common. I mean, how is Covestro being more creative and maybe not as many long-term relationships? Is that an accurate understanding?
Yeah, I think that we have two folds, right? We have our contractors that are on site every day, nested in our site, and those are more longer term, right? You have your 5-year deals, they're here a lot. But then on the other side, you have these things that maybe people come on site 3-4 times a year, and there you could have more of a spot, project-specific deal that may allow you to look at things on a quarter-by-quarter basis, on a job-by-job basis, so that we're not kind of stuck in a contract that may or may not be favorable for a long period of time due to the unknowns we have right now.
Scott, you mentioned at TPC Group, there's some major contracts that have been scrutinized. To talk a little bit more about that after you've heard Dub and Nikki throw their 2 cents.
And I'd echo on payment terms, especially. That's become a focus for us, and I think maybe a message to a lot of the suppliers is that procurement is not the end of the road on a lot of these contracts. The corporate finance, the rest of the organization is looking at how we can get through this time and making sure we're getting value out of our strategic supplier arrangements and just all the projects we're doing, because our investments in in safety and reliability are not going to stop, but they have to be executed in a way that that is financially and we're getting the most value out of those relationships. And so I think procurement sometimes also has to be an advocate for the agreements that we're making and the relationships that we have. And so if the more suppliers can do to help with that, to communicate the value that we're getting, to help with payment terms, to build these relationships that we can turn around and justify and communicate to the rest of the organization, I think the better it's going to be for all of us.
Scott, I'm going to stick with you. I mean, what are some key actions suppliers can take to make life easier for you so that they can also get work and make a project more routine or more seamless?
Yeah, I think the number one thing, especially with our long-term strategic suppliers, is data. The more information you can give us on how we're gaining value from this relationship, what is being done in the plants, how it's helping us, obviously safety records, and just everything that we're working on together that we can then turn around and communicate to the rest of the organization is just going to be helpful in maintaining and building that relationship.
Nikki, I'll just go down the line here. What are some of the things that you're looking for in a supplier, and how can they make life easier for you?
Yeah, I think for us, a lot of the things we heard in the advanced recycling also can apply to procurement, right? Communication, collaboration are two that kind of stick at the top for me. I mean, we all know that over the length of a relationship, there's going to be changes. There's going to be times where you need price increases from us or you need something additional, and having that communication line open and also the transparency around the communication. Don't just come to my team and say, hey, I need this price increase and here's my 10%. Well, why is that 10% important? What do I need? What are some aspects that I need for that price increase, right? Maybe your labor rates have gone up or whatever, because if we can verify that something is true, then sure, we're willing to work with you. But if it's just like, hey, here you go, because that's not being a good partner, right? And that's really what we're looking for in this industry to get by, is to be good partners, both ways, right? It's the same for us. Like if there's something where the market goes completely down and energy costs go down or something, we should be able to come and have that conversation with you and make it a two-way street. And also collaboration. If you see that you can make our lives better by being more efficient, or hey, I have this new technology, approach us about it. Let's talk about it. And then we can get with our stakeholders and safety and people internally. But that really makes our lives easier because, one, it helps to build a relationship and grow the trust, but it also helps us to know what's out there and what can make our lives better and yours as well.
Dub, you've been doing this for a quick minute. On our pre-call, you mentioned that contractors and vendors really need to explain their value and show that very clearly. I want you to talk more about that, if you would.
Well, just to kind of build on what Scott said and what Nikki said, obviously data, obviously coming with defensible positions to help us understand where the impact is and where we reach an amicable endpoint. And collaboration is huge. Giving us not only data, but feedback as well. What are we doing that is, unwittingly creating challenges for you or costs for you? I think it's really going beyond price. I often say that, when you're debating about price, all you're really doing is playing in the margin. So for every dollar, if you're arguing about price, there's a margin, and in that margin, that's the only thing you can do to affect the value of that relationship. If you go to demand management, if you go to specification, you go to kind of non-margin related activities, we need to start focusing on how we can increase the value capture and in a defensible and quantifiable way, in a way that doesn't cut into the supplier's margin or their viability, long-term viability. So I think looking at creative ways to drive value as opposed to price debate is where we really need to focus most of our energy. That said, price is always going to be important, and we're going to have to be commercially competitive, and we're going to have to drive value both on the cost and price side as well as the total value of the relationship.
So Liberation Day tariffs were announced in April of 2025, and they've reshaped the petrochemical trade landscape. Uncertainty's increased. Total Energies recently published a 15% decline in global petrochemical trade. While some U.S. producers have viewed the tariffs as a competitive advantage, Dub, how are recent tariffs changing and affecting your procurement and sourcing strategy, especially for imported materials and feedstocks?
I'm probably going to have an answer that most aren't expecting. Quite honestly, we haven't seen a huge impact from the tariff effect yet. We've gotten some noise coming through with regard to tariffs. I would say that a lot of the early, approaches we were getting with tariffs, when we dug down into it, were more anecdotal and more fear or anticipatory driven. But we are starting to see that come through. I think from a buying organization standpoint, we just want to have transparency and where those tariffs are coming through, how they're impacting you, and making sure that again, as I said earlier on, want to make sure that you have a viable and sustainable commercial arrangement with us. But it needs to be defensible. And so we need to make sure that we focus in on what tariff impacts there are, we isolate those, and that we can defend those.
Nikki, would you share your thoughts on tariff impacts so far and how it's affected your job?
Yeah, so when the tariff impacts came out, my team and I kind of were like, oh, what does this mean for us, right? Because first and foremost, I mean, you hear about all these tariffs, you hear about all these impacts. Yeah, tariffs aren't new, but to the magnitude that they were announced, it was different, right? So first and foremost, the engineer in me came out and said, okay, cool, let's make a spreadsheet, right? Because that's how I start everything. And we looked at HTC codes and looked at all the information that we could get, knowing that there was so much uncertainty. So we ran some probabilities and did all these things. But that being said, I mean, at the end of the day, we know tariffs are going to happen. We're a German company. We get a lot of our raw materials and our technical goods from outside the US, right? So we knew there was going to be an impact. For my team, primarily on the goods side, not really the services side. But there is some impact too, right? Because when contractors are coming on site to perform a job, you got to buy technical goods. So they're still important in this respect too. But to kind of echo what Dub said, I mean, when we had suppliers approaching us, we basically said, hey, what's your HTC code? What do you need? And then we looked it up and verified whether or not it was true. And if it was true, we, maybe because of the uncertainty, tried to split some things until it was more certain. Or if it was not legit at all and it was fear, we said, no, we're not going to accept that right now. But if it doesn't materialize, we will. So we kind of handled it like that. And I will say, most people are like, oh, tariffs, that's terrible. But I think for us, it also helped us to kind of explain and understand a little bit of our supply chain of our vendors, because there was materials and steel and stuff like that we were getting that was from other countries, and we had no idea it was coming from other countries because you don't see that because it's being bought by your vendor. So it also kind of helped us to understand the supply chain a little bit more. So I guess you could say trying to find some good in a maybe terrible situation.
So, Scott, just adding on to Nikki and Dub, I'm going to change the question a little bit, though. Which product categories or raw materials in the value chain are most sensitive to tariff changes, and how are you mitigating that?
Right. So the areas that I think are most sensitive are some of the larger plant equipment that we source. A lot of times that does come from overseas. Things like big pumps, instrumentation. Things like that, and a lot of times those do have the harmonized codes where we really can clearly see, okay, a large tariff was paid on this equipment, and that there's really no way around it. But just like Nikki said, a lot of suppliers kind of early on, after the tariffs were rolled out, added surcharges, tried increasing prices, things like that, and we issued some guidance pretty early that in order to actually pay a tariff surcharge, we would need evidence that a tariff was paid on that item. And if it is, fair enough. I mean, that is a new cost. But there were a lot of instances where we saw suppliers kind of more using it just to raise prices, essentially. And so that was something we pushed back pretty hard against. And it sounds like others have as well, with a lot of success.
Can I just compliment something? For those of us who have a global business operation, What often doesn't get seen with the whole tariff thing is the impact within your own organization when you're talking about the integration of your feedstocks and your inputs. So we were having to look at it not only from a operator-supplier relationship, but within our network there were impacts. So it was a bit complex, or is a bit complex.
Yeah, Dub, and anything else to add as far as as far as the specific categories or raw materials? Anything different from Scott's comments?
Well, I one thing I do think is an interesting nuance, and I'll build on Nikki's comment about the good in chaos. What it also does is daylight your supply chain, and when we have a heavy focus that is emerging, it's been around for a while, but we're heavily focused on sustainability and ESG, and that helps us further kind of identify our supply chain that we can tie back to our ESG sustainability objectives. So just wanted to share that as well.
Thank you. And Nikki, for Covestro, what part of the value chain is kind of most sensitive to these tariffs? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think as I mentioned a little bit before, for us it's really our technical goods that are coming from overseas. We have a lot of German suppliers on our valves and our pumps and things like that, so we've seen some impacts there. Anything that has steel in it, a lot of that is coming from China. I think that's probably similar across the board for most companies. So we are seeing it there, wherever we have anything with steel in a good or for a service that's being implemented at our site. Raw materials too are impacted. I don't think they've seen it as much. I think for us it's been primarily the technical goods up until now, but I mean it's still early. I'm sure there will be other applications and things that come up as things progress, but for us mainly technical goods.
Things will present themselves in the future. I want to talk about y'all's network. Each of you have a lot of experience. You've got peers. Dub, you're heavily involved with ISM, the Institute for Supply Management. How are you reaching out to other professionals? Have you reached outside your organizations to navigate some of this?
Short answer, yes. In fact, I have an executive advisory board that I got to run to immediately after that. And I sit with senior leaders from ExxonMobil and Shell and Motiva and others. The topics that we're discussing today are the same ones that we're having in those forums. It's working capital. It's managing against tariffs. It's dealing with the economic repercussions of a soft market. I very much try to reach out, not just to peers, but also to our key suppliers, and find out what they're seeing and what they're anticipating. So you have to look outside your own biosphere. You got to look outside your window and go talk to folks. I've also been in some CAPS panels with the CPO from Chevron and Halliburton and the like as well. And everything we're talking about, and I don't have to tell these folks this because this is their everyday life, but the conversations are happening, and the topical themes are the same across the board. I don't know how helpful that was.
No, thanks, Dub. Yeah.
Restate the obvious, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Nikki, I'm going to go to you on this question, man. How have tariffs driven you or Covestro to diversify your supplier base geographically? Better said, is there a propensity at this time to near shore or regional source?
Yes. So we have definitely looked at our supply chain and looked at opportunities. For us here in North America, it was actually an exciting opportunity, right? Because you're looking at sources here locally that you can help to increase the U.S. business and also give opportunities to others here locally versus using a lot of our well-established global suppliers. Now, that doesn't happen overnight, so obviously there's a lot of testing, a lot of technical evaluations that need to be done, but we have really started to look here locally at opportunities for either a second source in the interim in order for us to make sure we have that reliability, or in some cases where it was an easy fix, where we said, okay, yep, we could switch this over and use these providers. We've already made a couple of changes that have really helped us to increase competition and reliability. So I would say yes.
Scott, I'll go to you. Are you seeing that at TPC Group? Are y'all diversifying your supplier base geographically and nearshoring?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, just for all of our needs, we look at domestic and we look globally, and so because of the tariffs, domestic suppliers can be more competitive. Unfortunately, sometimes there are no viable domestic suppliers for some of the things we need, and I think it's going to be a long-term change for some of those to come online. And part of the difficulty of the tariff change is the uncertainty for a lot of those manufacturers. Is this new regime going to stay around, or does it end at some point? And those investments would then not pay off. And so I think my hope would be that as time goes on, more of those come online, and whether the tariffs are going to stay or whether they're going to go away or there will be deals made, we have some kind of certainty in the future, so that more of those domestic investments can translate into us having opportunities to source from them.
Dub, I think you're about to say something. I'll ask you the same question, but change it a little bit. Yeah, right. Have this experience highlighted realities of maybe some over-reliance of India or China, some other regions?
Well, yeah, definitely. You got to look at where your sources are and reassess them based on the changing landscape. But I would also add, we've talked quite a bit about how we engage our suppliers, how we're driving improved cost and value. And I've seen a ton of great questions come through. We could probably sit up here for a day. But I also want to make sure that we touch on what we as operators are doing as well. It's not like we're just going after our supplier base to contain costs. We're changing our org structures. We're looking at leaner organizations. We're looking at nearshoring and offshoring for some more tactical or transactional activities. We have to change our business model. So it's not a single dimensional approach to it, right? I do want to make sure that it's understood that the business landscape is changing. Again, don't have to tell the people in this room that. But we're looking at every dimension of it.
Scott, I'll go to you next. I mean, when we talk about managing suppliers and maybe taking advantage of inflationary tariffs, how do they avoid the Santa's naughty list?
Well, yeah, like I said, I think the easiest way is if nothing has changed for your business, or the changes due to tariffs are pretty minimal, especially if you're a service business, then don't add tariff surcharges. Basically, just using that as a way to charge more, and we have seen some of that and pushed back on it. And if there is a tariff impact, be as transparent as possible about what is causing that, and in most instances, you would tie that to an actual purchase. So if we're buying a pump from a distributor that's being sourced from Germany, then you would have a harmonized code attached to that, and you would show how much you paid, country of origin, and that would be agreeable. But just saying we're going to charge 3.8% more across all of our products and all of our services, that's not really the same thing. And if that's a reality for your business, then talk to us and figure out if there's a way that we can modify our agreement so that we can more accurately track tariff charges to the things we're purchasing. Because ultimately we want to have that level of transparency, and we don't want our suppliers to be in a bind. But at the same time, we want it to be transparent and honest about what's actually being paid and what's being passed through.
Hey, Nikki, what materials or services are most difficult to secure maybe at this time? And what's the next potential bottleneck? And that goes in line with kind of some of our questions coming in from the audience. So thank y'all for sending those in.
Yeah, I think the two things we're seeing right now, on the good side is transformers, right? With all the data centers and everything coming up, we are struggling to get transformers in a adequate time frame, and the cost of which is really expensive. So on the good side, I would say that that's our biggest problem. On the services side, I saw some questions coming in about workforce and skilled trades. That's a huge problem right now. And luckily, we're at a university right now that is trying to help us to add more interest, et cetera, into the skilled trades part, because what we're seeing, welders, some of the specialty things, it's very difficult for you all to get those skills, labor, trades, and then for us to be able to procure them. So I do think that that's going to be a huge problem, at least for the foreseeable future, and that we really need to start with probably the elementary schools and those type of things to explain to them that it's okay to go into a trade and you're going to do really well doing it. But I think that until we can kind of get that perception and get some of the folks interested in some of these trades, it's going to be a problem for us to be able to get enough people on site in an industry for us to do some of these projects, et cetera, that the growth is happening here in the region.
Dub, any comments to add? And what are your thoughts on some of the most difficult things to procure and what's next?
I would say from the direct side, it's relatively volatile. So in addition to outages and whether planned or unplanned and tariff impacts, that is pretty volatile on a day-to-day basis. From an indirect standpoint, specialty equipment, we're getting long lead times on that, which I don't think is purely because of tariffs. I think we're still, I think somebody mentioned it earlier, we're still seeing the effects from COVID and the supply chain disruption. I think that continues. So I would say that, those are the primary areas. As far as, and I've seen a bunch of great questions, and when we're talking about skilled labor, fabrication shops and repair, those have been challenging in the Gulf Coast region, as well as some of the other regions in the world that we've dealt with. But I did want to add, because I've seen a bunch of questions come up, it's not all about cost. We still care about quality. We still care about schedule preservation. We still care about total value delivered, and we care about sustainability. We care about safety. So those things don't go away. We have a very balanced approach in evaluating our suppliers in any type of tender or engagement. So those don't go away.
I'm going to group a few of our questions coming into one, and that is, Scott, I'll go to you. Our audience wants to hear about kind of your TPC's criteria for supplier selection. If there's a decision to use a vendor, maybe project-related or non-project-related, how does someone get on your site to do some work?
Well, I mean, obviously there are the non-negotiables, having a good safety record, qualifying through ISN. But aside from that, we really look at reputation too. If your company has a good reputation in the industry, if you can let us know, without divulging anything you can't, but who you've worked for, how that went, if there are kind of what your specialty is. I know, having been an engineer myself, a lot of times I remember being pitched by companies that claim to do absolutely everything, If you have any kind of need, we can do that. We can do that. Figure out what your niche is, and what your specialty really is, and start with how much value that can add, especially maybe compared to what we're doing now. So I think if you're a new company trying to get in, then obviously the safety record is important. Reputation is important, and really being able to define what your specialty is and what that value is really helps us, because again, you have to look at procurement, like once we're past the contracting stage and the onboarding, we want to be your advocates too, because sometimes people in the plants don't like change, And so if we're bringing on a new supplier or a new vendor or someone providing a new service, then we have to be able to communicate what the purpose of that relationship is to the rest of the organization. And so the more you can do to help us do that, the better.
Nikki, any comments there about maybe how not to upset your procurement manager?
So I will say that probably the thing that upsets me the most is that I get a call from a requisitioner saying, I need to source this service from this vendor that I've never heard of. They never contacted us. And I'm like, well, okay, who are they? What do they do? Have they met all of our criteria? So the main advice I will give is if you want to get into our site, please go through procurement. Please make sure you contact one of us. I know that there's a lot of industry events and you meet people that work on our site and those type of things. And yes, they could talk about technical requirements, safety requirements, etc. But on the services side, we do require contracts to come onto our site, which is something that only procurement can sign off on. So please make sure you're contacting us so that we can make sure the proper channels and the proper approvals are done. So that's the thing that frustrates me the most, and that would make me so happy if we would, make that happen for our site. I will say, in addition to that, just making sure that, if you do want to get in, call us up. Tell us what you're, able to provide us. To the point previously made, I mean, yes, we do know a lot of companies can supply and a lot of different services, but, let's start with one and let's see how that goes, and then we could always add on. But I think, calling us, we could tell you when our sourcing events are coming up, because we do strategic sourcings that are 3 and 5 years long most times. So we do like to get in. We'll come and see your facility or come and see one of the facilities you might be working on, so we can kind of understand your safety requirements, what quality procedures you have in place, et cetera. And we can make sure that everything is done correctly up front, so there's no surprises or delays later on. So that would be my thoughts on that.
Dub, you had some comments on our pre-call about it's great that a vendor is trying to provide that strategic value to the organization, but at the same time, going through the proper protocols and getting in the gate.
Yeah, I would, and just to add to what Scott and Nikki said, at Indovinya, our supplier selection process is a collaborative process. Procurement has ultimate commercial authority, but we work very closely with the requesters, the business, environmental health and safety, finance in some cases, to make sure that we have a thorough understanding of what our business objectives are, our business needs are, and that we've taken those into account and weighted them appropriately in our decision-making process. So it's not a siloed process, but a very collaborative, cross-functional process.
Doug, I'm going to stick with you because we're going to roll into more sustainability and ESG for a second here. Let's tie our two panels together now. Earlier, our advanced recycling panel provided insight into ExxonMobil's capabilities and the demand for a more circular approach to plastics and chemicals. How is Indorama, how are you adapting to biofeedstocks, hydrogen, and low-carbon initiatives?
Well, first of all, I think we're considered an industry leader excuse me, in our sustainability efforts. We sit on the board of Together for Sustainability. We fully embedded a support platform, EcoVadis, to help us in our program. We're doing supplier audits and partnering with our key suppliers. It's absolutely critical. We have a very ambitious target by 2030. We're starting to focus heavily on Scope 3 as well. So all these things weave very tightly into our supplier selection process, as well as our ongoing business activities with our key suppliers.
Nikki, I'll get your comments next. How is Covestro adapting to biofeedstocks, hydrogen, any low-carbon initiatives?
Yeah, so I would say, obviously sustainability is an important part of our overall goals and objectives and circular economy as well. I think the issue that we face here in the U.S., maybe a little bit more than EMEA or other countries, is just that the corporate landscape sometimes doesn't allow for sustainability initiatives to be economic. Some of our customers aren't there yet. Some of the technologies aren't there yet. So we are super excited, involved in a lot of different sustainability initiatives. We've recently had some successes by putting solar panels out by Texas and Dallas. And we now have 4 of our facilities that are powered by solar energy, which was a huge success for us. We're obviously looking at waste recycling and different things in order for our waste to create usable products versus incineration, et cetera. But the struggle is that we either have to have a customer that's willing to partner with us in order for it to be economical, or we have to rely on all the incentives that are being introduced by government, either locally or on the federal level. So we are trying everywhere we can. I think that that'll open up as more and more years progress and things get a little bit more tested and approved. But we are, as an organization, trying everywhere we can. down to, having some, electrical energy for vehicles on site, just for our people to be able to charge up at site. So it is important to us. We're really hoping that the government continues to have these incentives that we've been able to rely on for some of our other projects. But anywhere it's possible for us, we are trying in order for us to be better for the environment and also help us to, be here long term. Because if we don't get on board with sustainability, we as an organization are not going to make it. It is the future, and we need to get behind it.
Scott, any comments on the ESG space?
Yeah, TPC's approach, we go product by product, and so we have ISC certification on our
Yeah, we lost.
Well, I guess our time's up. No.
Mine too.
Yeah, is that better? Are we live now? Is that good?
We were preserving energy.
Yeah.
This is
All right.
fun.
Can you hear me? Perfect. All right. Yeah. So we have ISCC certification on our 1,3 butadiene product line, which is our largest product line, and then also just ESG questions we ask about during the ISNet World onboarding process. But part of our approach to sustainability too, and just corporate responsibility, is also our community involvement. Our charity golf tournament, we've donated over $2 million to local charities over the past 20 years in the history of that, and just continues to grow. And the nice thing about that too is it gives us the opportunity to involve suppliers as well in our charitable activities. So those kinds of efforts are really important to us, giving back to the community, because we are so local to the area that we operate in. So the elementary schools and high schools in the area, and also a lot of local charities.
Thank you, Scott. Dub, I want to dig into technology a little bit. On our pre-call, we talked about how important it is to have a digital backbone. In our pre-call, you mentioned that a lot of your companies, and what's focused for you guys is data, right? So what are companies doing for cost control management tools? How do you apply that data based on your cost control management tools that you have at your disposal to make good decisions?
Well, the only thing you could have done to make that question massive is add AI.
That's next up.
No. Having a digital backbone is a focus area, and putting in not only processes, but platforms that support efficiency and effectiveness in how we do our business is critical. We've got a source to contract tool that we've stood up in the last couple of years. We're unlocking functionality in our ERP systems to make us more efficient and effective, and hopefully easier to work with our suppliers as well, reducing some of the churn around the transactional and the low value activities. But there's no shortage of digital solutions. So having a very scrutinizing approach to what you need. I also warn against the shiny objects syndrome, which when you're ADD like I am, you have a problem with that. It's like, oh, that's cool. But you need to ground truth the need. You need to understand what value it's going to deliver. And then you need to make sure that it's defensible to do. But the other thing that often gets lost is once you implement, monitor, measure, ensure it's delivering the value that you anticipated. Don't just kick it off, high five, and assume it's going to deliver what it's expected to.
Nikki, at Covestro, how are y'all connecting your contractor management software, your ERPs, and your contractor pre-screening to execute and actually find that value?
Yeah, I think, we've recently launched our new sourcing tool, which is Kilvar. So there we are allowed now to not only not have to send emails back and forth, but it also is allowing us to look at history, speed up our sourcing events, do RFQs more effectively. And so that's really been beneficial for us. We've also used our internal tools. I know we'll talk about AI here in a minute, but in order for us to review contractor comments to our red lines of our agreements more effectively and quickly, So we're able to put our contracts into a tool and kind of look at the red lines and see what they mean, and without having to wait on legal or whatever, look and see what the comments mean and if we can accept it or not. So that's really kind of sped up our process a little bit. And then we also, to what Dub said, are looking at our ERP systems and kind of looking at what we could do there. So we really are trying where we can to make the process more efficient and effective. I guess while I'm talking about the process, I did see a question come in based on my comment about making sure they go through procurement. I mean, I know for us, and I'm sure for the others as well, there's definitely ways to get into procurement and to be able to talk to us. I mean, if for Covestro you don't know who to talk to, we do have a common number that they'll get to you to one of us. So if you call them and say, hey, I'm interested in joining Covestro as a vendor, they'll get a hold of one of us based on the service that you're trying to get, and we can get you into the door. So don't let that perturb you, and I didn't mean anything negative about my comment. It was more about just making sure we go through the proper channels, because I don't think procurement wants to be the roadblock. A lot of times we're seen as the roadblock because we do have procedures and processes in place. But if they're handled correctly from the beginning, we could be a friend and a partner and not be the roadblock. So just wanted to mention that too.
Thank you, Nikki. Sticking with technology for a second, the dominant buzzword, and Scott, I'll go to you. The dominant buzzword across all sectors right now is artificial intelligence. I mean, don't roll your eyes, Scott, but we have to talk about it. Companies are navigating everything from implementation to the trust of AI data. Man, Scott, and you're in the batter's box here. How has AI impacted your day-to-day?
Yeah, so I think it's made a pretty big impact. I mean, we're integrating AI tools in the company, and the key thing is making sure that we do that safely. So making sure that we kind of have our AI tools walled off from anything we upload into it, not going back out to the rest of the world. And that's something you've got to be very careful about, because if you don't know where your data is going when you enter it into an AI tool, it could be going anywhere. So our IT team has been very intentional about designing tools for us that allow us to do that safely. But AI is very good for honestly, it can give ideas that you might not have thought of. So if there are things that need to be evaluated, questions you have, it can almost be like another person in the room that will generate ideas that may not occur to you, and whether you agree with them or not. But I always think back to the old, there's an IBM technical manual from the 70s, and there's a page from it that says that a computer can never be held accountable, so a computer must never make a management decision. So at the end of the day, you always have to make sure people are still in control, and otherwise we're not operating safely.
Wait a minute. What do you know about the 70s, Scott? History class, right?
Right. So, Dub, you mentioned that AI can lead you down the wrong path. Has that happened?
Well, yeah, short answer is yes. And by the way, I agree with everything Scott said as far as having the right IT infrastructure, controls, protections. Using AI, I still believe, is a very immature landscape right now. I think that I've gone to a number of conferences and sat on some panels, and what I've gleaned from it is everybody thinks it's cool, everybody knows it's here to stay, but nobody really knows how to harness it yet. And I think it is still a bit novel. My guy who heads up our procurement excellence organization, he's got a great line that he says, AI is an input. It's a data point. Don't take it for fact. Don't take it for gospel. He said, AI can just help you make bad decisions faster if you don't use it the right way.
So guys, before we wrap, because we don't have much time left, I wanted to get into talent and culture. It's all about the people. Nikki, I think you harped on workforce development. I'll start with you. We will now jump over to talent. So what I found interesting in our pre-call is the conversations about the past by which kind of each of you made it into your career. Nikki, talk a little bit about that, and talk about why it's so important to have that diversification in your procurement department.
Yeah, I think just like anything else, diversity of thought, diversity of opinion is what makes us better, right? If we all had the same opinions, the same thoughts, etc., then you never would get anywhere and you wouldn't advance. So I think it's really important. And the cool thing about procurement is, in my team too, like, we all have different backgrounds, right? Some of us are more technical, some of us are more commercial, but that's what makes it work. I think, the cool thing is like, if you could be anything in our plant, and if you want to learn about the commercial side, it's only going to make you better at your job, right? So, I think that a lot of perceptions is procurement's only for people that have majored in supply chain or whatever. I mean, I'm a chemical engineer by degree. I did my internship in a lab in school, and I was by myself all day, and I didn't talk to anybody, and I was bored out of my mind, and it was painful. So, I found my way to procurement. There's others, that have accounting backgrounds and find their way here. So I think, it's important that we keep our eyes open for talent in our organization, and that we use, how likely are they to solve a problem? How likely are they not to accept the first answer as the correct answer, right? Because just like AI, the information you feed and the information you learn is what makes you better, right? So I think that as we kind of look at our organization, and just like the trades, we struggle a lot to find really good people that want to work, want to come to the office, et cetera, every day. So I do think that, having that diversification is going to make you better as a group and better as a company.
Dub, any comments on that? I mean, you have an interesting background, kind of working for major oil and gas companies. You mentioned Shell and petrochemical companies around the world. What are your thoughts on having different personalities in your department?
Right. Well, I couldn't have said it better than Nikki said about having diversity of thought, background, different unique inputs, and making good business decisions. I don't need a team that thinks like me. If I got a bunch of people that think like me, I don't need a team. But I will also add that people are our greatest asset. Our company is the group of people in our company. That's it. We have all this infrastructure. We have reactors and crackers and all that cool stuff. But the key asset is our people. And if people don't feel engaged, if they don't feel valued, if they don't feel like they're growing professionally and personally, I would challenge anybody to say, I've grown professionally, but it didn't affect me personally. Okay, they're intertwined. Then we're going to lose the best asset we've got. And so when we have our leadership meetings, and my boss, who is senior vice president of delivery, says, "What's keeping you up at night?" It doesn't matter what initiatives or projects we've got going on. The only thing that keeps me up at night, and what I worry about, is, are all the people in my organization feeling valued, engaged, that they're getting that growth? And when you get busy and when you get resource constrained, that's one of the things that typically falls to the back burner, and we have to be very intentional about not letting that happen.
Scott, feel free to make some comments. I mean, you came in as an engineer, so.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I would just echo that completely. I think having people on your procurement team from a variety of backgrounds really adds to your capabilities. I was a plant engineer, a chemical engineer from A&M, and worked in the unit for a few years, and then went into marine logistics and then into procurement. And so being able to bring that experience with me, I think, really helps in some of these procurement discussions that can get pretty technical. When we're working on a project having to do with the distillation column, I understand what's being talked about because I've crawled through a distillation column, And so being able to bring that to the discussion sometimes helps with the understanding of the vendor side, and also with credibility with the plant. Making sure that they know that you're an advocate for them and their needs, and not just a corporate person, And so being able to bridge that gap between the technical and operations and the financial side, I think, is critical in a procurement team, and it really helps with all of the discussions that we have. And TPC, I think, has done a great job just across the company of moving people into different areas and giving them opportunities for development.
Thank you, Scott. Folks, we covered a lot. Are there any last words from anyone? Want to wrap this in a bow, Dub or Nikki? Nothing? Scott?
Who's going to go first?
Yeah, nothing other than thanks for having us. good conversation. I wish we could get a printout
Yeah, we could
of
stay
all the
another 2 hours.
questions to address after the fact. But
great.
Good conversation. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, everyone, for
Yeah, thank you.
participating. We're about out of time. I'm going to kick it back to Chad. So thank you so much.
So big round of applause for the group.